What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Quill and Hammer. I'm Trevor. This is Zach. We had so much fun with video games last week that I think we're going to do another one. Zach, what's on the docket?
So we're going to be going over a game that we both had real high hopes for. We were very hyped when this game was announced, leading all the way up to it, and then it kind of fell flat. And we're talking about Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga. If you've been on our channel before, you know how much we love Star Wars, and Lego games have just been fun from the very beginning. I remember way back in the day, we got the first Lego Star Wars game for the PlayStation 2. And I remember you and we played it to death, and it was a ton of fun.
Yeah.
So we were really looking forward to this, but it didn't meet our expectations. So today we're going to be talking about how we would have changed it and the reasons why we don't like it. So Trev, start us off.
All right. So my natural point is to start with the story and normally when we go through video games, like last week when we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy, my main gripe was the motivation, the story, what I would have done differently. Well, this is different because the Star Wars story is set, right? All nine
Right.
movies have happened. They are trying to pick scenes and levels from the movie that would have, been fun. Like you're telling the Star Wars story, but you're also stuck with, the license, not license, the story is set, so you have to work within the confines of the movies. So I guess we're not saying we should have done this. If you want to know what we would have done differently in Star Wars, there are what, 12 videos about that from the
Hmm.
two of us, so go back and watch those. But the thing that bothered us and bothered me the most is that they chose the wrong scenes.
They did.
They chose the worst things to focus on at least 40% of the time. So we're going to start at the beginning, episode one, and kind of just briefly go through and say what we were disappointed in and what we would have done differently. For example, the first real level in Star Wars Episode 1 is a bigger fish. And you're in the, core of Naboo and you're just evading a fish. I
Not
just don't
very,
understand. I
it's not very climactic.
It's not climactic. There are so many different things that you can do. And let's start off by saying the fun of Lego Star Wars is the whimsical, tongue-in-cheek nature of being in a Lego world.
Well, and that's the whole point of the Lego games. They're almost a parody of
Right,
the source material. They tell the story, but it's like they make it funny, they tell jokes in a Lego way, you know.
right,
Um, but you have to still do things that are exciting and fun, it's and so um to have it be an on the rails type of flying vehicle mission, I mean it wasn't what I was looking for.
right. Well, like, and so for example, let's start with episode one. Off the top of my head, I can think of two things that would have been better than a bigger fish. And the first is you start with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in on the Trade Federation ship.
Right.
And you have puzzles and things. You have to figure out how to get out of the room with the dioxis poison. And then you're trying to get all the way to, anyway, you just have to escape the ship and get down to Naboo. Or you get down to Naboo and you have to find a way, with Jar Jar kind of getting in the way, you and Qui-Gon to reunite with Obi-Wan and then get to the Gungan city. Like those are two things that could have been stretched out. You could have had so many different things happening. Um, Puzzles, funny moments. all sorts of things that would have been great. And what do? You focus on the section of the movie that has 3 minutes tops of just annoying back and forth between Obi-Wan, or yeah, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Jar Jar, where Jar Jar is trying to explain that he's an idiot.
So I 100% agree with you, but I'm just going to give the developers a little bit of a benefit of the doubt.
Okay,
So the one thing that I will say is they they probably didn't want to just do all the exact same levels that were already done from the first time a Lego Star Wars game was made. And both those two scenes or levels that you suggested, they were the first two levels in Lego Star Wars the last time.
okay,
And I don't think, I mean, they were there for a reason. You know what I mean?
right,
Because that's kind of where you can have something exciting. So I can understand that they don't just want to rehash or reimagine each level as something new. And sometimes you have to, you know what I mean? Like
right,
a level with the fight between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Maul has to be in there. So
right.
they're going to have to reimagine it somehow. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt that at least they're trying to do something new.
Okay,
So that's point number one. Point number two is, and I disagree with this decision. I wouldn't have done this, and I don't know. I sort of get where they're coming from, but I don't think it worked the way that they wanted it to. They Part of their idea for this game was to make an open world, right? An open galaxy where
right,
you can run around and do what you want. And they tried to incorporate that open world feel into the telling of the story.
right,
So instead of just having, for those who don't know, in the previous Lego Star Wars games, you have a little hub world, and then you go and you select your mission, and then it takes you through that section of the story. Then you go back to your hub world and you select the next one, right? Well, in this one, they tried to make it continuous. So you finish the mission and you stay as Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Jar Jar, and then in the open world, you move and there are things that kind of happen and you get to the next spot. So I think they were trying to make it feel like you were always in the story,
okay,
but I just don't think that it worked out the way that they wanted to. It didn't have the same feel as the dedicated levels,
right.
and at least that was my perception. So, but those are my two benefits of the doubt that I'm giving the developers. They didn't want to rehash, and they tried to make the open world they tried to fold that into the telling of the stories.
Okay. So let me respond to that really quick. Um, I understand where they're coming from, but again, it's the story is set. The story has happened. You have to work within the bounds of what Star Wars has, and there's nothing wrong with reimagining the level with you and Obi-Wan or Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan escaping the Trade Federation ship. Reimagine it. Think what would you have done differently? Yeah, you kind of have the things, but yeah, create new rooms, do whatever. Like there is a difference, not a difference. Um Gosh, this is stupid. It's like the good, better, best, trash kind of argument. You have Sorry, I just became a nutrition coach online. So this is at the forefront of my thing. Um, but it's like you take someone who, if all you do is eat donuts and McDonald's and junk food all the time, and you're trying to get them to a healthier space, you don't go all the way to straight kale and quinoa and all of this, whatever. There is a huge area in between absolute trash eating and the cleanest, most healthy. even if it's bland and horrible kind of diet, right?
Right.
There's a spectrum of, hey, maybe instead of McDonald's, uh, we do, I don't know, maybe Chick-fil-A's grilled chicken instead of, I don't know. You see where I'm going with this?
Right.
There's a difference between we have to abandon something 100% because it was already done, and what's the only thing that we can do in between, before we get to Tatooine that hasn't been done? Well, I guess we go through the core.
Right.
It's like you can use your imagination and make some sort of concession and still tell the story, but get to a good spot, um, and be different and make it fun and engaging. And that's my gripe with that. Now, I didn't, and here's, I like the idea that the developers had about the open world. Like, I
And
don't mind that you start somewhere, and then I mean, take whatever it's called, episode one. You get out of the planet core, and then you're in Naboo, and you have a whole bunch of open world stuff to do in Naboo, and then you get on the ship and you fly to Tatooine, and then you're on the next level, whatever. There are things to do, and I don't disagree with that. I like the idea. As long as you're hitting the main story notes, you know what I
one
mean?
and I think that's my thing too. I like the idea, but they picked the wrong parts to make open world and not a dedicated mission,
Right.
and if I can propose another level idea rather than rehashing those two, I would say an interesting idea that you could do to be different is you can make an entire level out of the three of them swimming from the banks of the lake down to the Gungan city, you know,
Absolutely.
where you actually control your character and you can make the controls basically the same as on land so that it's not like, you're restricted, you can still use the force and do all your abilities, whatever, but make a level out of that, and imagine something completely new that we haven't seen.
Right.
And I think that would be totally acceptable.
I I like that idea. The gripe that we have, and the theme as you and I were going through this together and looking, is the thing that bothered us the most is when they didn't know what to do, so they put you in a starship, or they put you in the planet core and the submersible, or it's like you're so limited because all you can do is change you know, the skin of the ship, but you're not really solving any puzzles, you're just going through.
Exactly.
It feels lazy when the whimsical nature of Lego Star Wars is finding the puzzles, and you're doing different things, and you're trying to collect the studs, and all of the fun of controlling different characters and being whoever, and seeing Palpatine trying to rescue Princess Leia, you know what I mean? Like, that's fun.
Right.
It's that kind of stuff that you miss because in um every single game world movie adaptation, I think you're at least in one, maybe two flying vehicle levels, and it's a waste. That's not
It
what you want. If
it
if
just
you
gets
want
old.
if you want like and this gets back to the open world stuff. I love the idea of flying different ships and having different missions and things like that in the open world as
Exactly.
puzzles and things, but when you're telling the actual story, like, that's not fun. It
One,
wasn't fun for me. Those were the tedious missions where I was like, I have to go back again and do a bigger fish so I can get the five Kyber bricks or whatever, you know what I mean?
well, and that's the thing. I think, you can have them be one-time missions to get from mission one to mission two or level one to level two,
Yeah.
so for example, if you went with this idea of swimming from the shore to the Gungan city. That's your level one. And you talk to Boss Nass, and he says, well, here's your ship, and to get to the next level, you have to get through the planet core in a certain amount of time.
Right.
And it's not that difficult. It's just something to do, and then you never have to do it again type thing. So
Right.
it's incorporated into the telling of the story, but then it's not this it's not a waste of a level. I guess that was sort of my gripe with it, is it wasted an entire level each time they did one of these vehicle ideas.
Right. I mean, and to continue on, so the first one you're going through the planet core, and then in episode one, the next thing that you're doing is the pod racing. Now, I'm
Right.
not mad at the pod racing because objectively, that was one of the fun scenes in episode episode one. It was epic. You saw the races. You didn't know what was going on. Like it was fun. But you could have done something different. It didn't need to be that's all the level was is you going around the track. You could have done,
Right.
half of it is we're trying to repair the pod and we have to go and find things or solve
Mm.
puzzles and whatever. There are things that we could do to get there or break it up and, be a little whimsical. Have, you have to maybe as R2 and C3PO try and stop some sabotage or something. I don't know. You
Right.
can play around a little bit, and that's the fun of the Lego world is you can be a little whimsical and
Right.
take a little bit of creative license.
Right.
But so there's that, and then the next thing that you have to do is, you have to have the Darth Maul fight, but then you know, you have the outmanned, not outgunned thing, and that's fine. That was, that's part of the story. But then again, you're back into a plane
Back into a plane.
at the end of the thing. So three out of the five first levels take all the fun out of Lego Star Wars because, again, you just get stuck in a plane. I mean,
You
and
do.
again, to their credit, and I'm sure that I'm gonna bring this up, and you're gonna be like, "Well, that was one of the levels," but like, you have the entire palace where Padme and Queen Amidala are trying to get to the throne room. You can do that. You can reimagine that in a fun, whimsical way. Um,
Right.
and do something and then you can switch back and forth between Anakin and maybe the Gungans. You can combine a couple of things. um
I think you should combine the Gungan level with Anakin's flight,
yeah,
because they're happening at the same time. They both sort of rely on one another,
right,
and then you can still, have your stupid flying level, but not waste an entire level out of it,
right,
and I agree with you again. I mean, they picked the right story beats for Lego Star Wars in the original Lego Star Wars,
right.
and I'm not trying to make this new game be exactly what the old game was, but I can't help it if they picked the right missions the first time, you know?
And again, the problem with the Lego Star Wars games and any Lego game is that it's like Lego Lord of the Rings is copying the Lord of the Rings.
Right,
Skywalker Star Wars is parodying in the Lego universe the the Star Wars story. And
right.
the story beats are the story beats. That's my gripe is it's okay to follow the story. It's okay to, like I said, reimagine a level or combine things or hit the right story beats and make it fun, make the puzzles different, make the feel different. There are things you can do, but I don't know, like that's the problem, and then you go to the next movie and the same thing, it's the same problem. The first two levels in Attack of the Clones, again, Zach, are you're in a speeder flying after the whoever, and then you're in Obi-Wan's ship chasing after Jango Fett.
Right.
And that's not fun,
It's
really.
not.
You
It's
know,
not.
it's like and we could go through and do this for every single episode and say what we would do. Um and we could spend probably 4 hours just dissecting it and choosing what we would do. But that's my main gripe is like it's like they took the easy way out because they didn't want to be like the original. And it's not our fault that the original hit all the right story, things. But you can incorporate it differently. And I guess that's the hard part is we have all of this new technology. Um, the PlayStation 5 has advanced so much farther than the PS2, and yet we feel like we have to disregard the fun parts of the story because it was already done in the past on an inferior machine. And we're not saying
And
we're not saying replace it or remaster the old thing or just do a beat for beat, but like let's take advantage of the graphics. Let's take advantage of the raw processing power that the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox One or all of these new consoles have and do what we couldn't do back then and make it even more epic. It's like the open world thing. You have so much that you could do in the open world just with that idea of the one-off. Well, we have to have, it's not a real level, but we have to get you from Gungan City to, Theed. And so let's have like a one of those, you have to do this one time level to get there and connect the, dots or whatever. And and we can put you in a ship and then you can go and do. But
right.
But when that is the only thing in a level is you're just in a ship, it's a waste.
It is a waste. And like you said, we could talk about what levels we would have done for probably 4 hours, but I think I want to move into a little bit of the gameplay. And this is kind of a transition. And part of the reason why I dislike the levels that they chose is because the open world gameplay is inherently different from the levels gameplay. In the
Right.
levels, yeah, you're progressing through a linear level. It's not an open world situation. You have to go from A to B to C.
Yeah.
And part of the fun is there are um, hidden collectibles. I think
Mhm.
there are mini kits that you have to find, and there's like 5 or 6 of them in each level. And on top of that, there are missions that you can complete, um, certain requirements that you have to meet in each level. There are 3 of them, and then you have to collect enough studs, which are the little coins, to
Right. Become
fill up
true Jedi.
your
Yeah.
true Jedi bar. You get points for filling it up all the way. And so it makes it fun, you know what I mean? There are um secrets to find inside of the levels.
Right.
And it makes those story beats more important, more engaging, right? But if you take that away, then it's you're taking away an important part of the gameplay from those important moments. There's
Right.
a disconnect. And to say another good thing about it is I really liked the way that they structured, the collectibles inside of the levels.
Right.
I like how they did the mini kits. It was just how they've always been. Um, and I liked the addition of the the missions to fulfill inside each level. I thought that was an interesting thing to do. And so I wish I just wish that that could have been done on the right story beats. But
Right.
talking about gameplay, another one of my gripes is I think it suffers a little too much from the Assassin's Creed syndrome,
Yo.
or better known as the Ubisoft syndrome, an open world with too much to do.
Yep.
Because, and this is getting into, well, I guess everything we do is personal opinion, but um, you and I, we like to be completionists, right? We like to check every box off the list. We like to platinum things.
Yes.
And this game made it extremely tedious to do either of those.
Extremely tedious.
And it's not so much the collectathon nature of the game, because there are other games that are pretty similar that are so much more fun.
Right.
But it was tedious because there there were so many different worlds that you had to go to and
Uh-huh.
so many different Kyber bricks to collect. I mean, I think upwards of 2000, is that how many there were?
It was something like that,
I
yeah.
mean, it was an oppressive number of Kyber bricks that you had to collect throughout the open world, and there are, 18 different planets that you have to go to with different um different areas in each planet, which is cool,
Right.
but it became a little tedious, and especially the missions where you had to go from one world to another one across the galaxy to another one and then come back and
Uh-huh.
whoops, you had to do something in this level to unlock this in this planet,
Right.
and maybe that's an unfair criticism, but it just became too much, and
It was too much.
it just felt a little tedious. And I want to contrast that to something like Super Mario Odyssey.
Hmm.
Super Mario Odyssey has a similar setup. You have different planets, so to speak.
Right.
In Mario Odyssey, they are kingdoms, and there's a bunch of power moons to collect all throughout the level. Some of them are extremely easy, like some of the Kyber bricks are extremely easy, and some of them are a little more difficult.
Hmm.
But the difference is there was never a you have to go and do this on seven other planets before you come back and get this one brick. You
Right.
can complete everything in a certain kingdom by being in that kingdom.
Right.
Each world is self-contained, and maybe that's a not a positive thing for some people. Maybe some people really liked the idea that the galaxy was interconnected, but for me, being a completionist, I would rather have it all self-contained in each planet.
Right. Now for me, I don't mind I don't mind the open world concept, and I really liked some of the interconnected stuff. Um, but it was so much. If like maybe, you go to Coruscant and then you have to go from there to Jakku once and that was it. But it was like, okay, you're trying to 100% complete just the Coruscant levels. Okay, well, you have three in one area, you have three things where you have to go to Jakku, and then you have to go to uh whatever that salt planet is called, and then you have to go to Hoth, and then you have to go to Endor, and then you have to go back to Endor, and then you have to go to Hoth again, and then you go back to Coruscant, and then you can complete one thing.
Right.
And I'm not saying like and give them credit. Like part of me is like there was way too much, but if I'm paying 60, $70 for a game, I like too much sometimes. I like the
And
idea that I'm getting at least my money's worth and not
and
getting
that's
screwed over.
and
So
that's a good point too. I mean, they definitely put a ton of content into it. And like I said, I mean, this is kind of
it
a
is.
nitpicky gripe, but I mean, you're right. You sometimes it's nice to have a ton of content because you did pay $70 for this game. Sorry, I kind of cut you off.
No, I agree. And that's why I brought that up. Like, but there's a balance there, and that's the thing that I want is if you're doing the interconnected worlds stuff, like. I am fine with that if you keep it within episode one, episode two, episode three, maybe. And then, you start at Naboo, and then, okay, for one or two things, you have to go to Tatooine. And then for one or two things, you have to go to, um, Coruscant and then back to Naboo. And then you've got, but it was the sheer volume, and then it was just tedious. That's the that it comes down to that. It was so tedious to go back and forth and back and forth to complete this one thing, and I feel like you could have bulked up the story, or you could have incorporated more of doing the story into the open world rather than here are your five levels, and that's really the story. But then you're in, Gungan City, and now you've got 860 little tasks that you have to do here, but you can't even do them all. You know what I mean? Like
I do.
it ended up being like 90% open world and 10% story. And for me, I'm more of a story guy than you know, grind it out and do all of the side quests and whatever. And so when it gets to that point, if I hadn't been, um, one, if I hadn't been single, and two, if I hadn't been, completionist, whatever, and just that raw determination to get through it, I wouldn't have done it. I've abandoned games for less.
I, one thing that I think, and now that I'm sitting here thinking, I think part of it is that there was too much repetition. It was a little repetitive with the missions.
Exactly.
And I much rather have, and I kind of already said this, but I much rather have puzzles or missions contained within the world rather than going from world to world to world. And one of the reason I bring that up again is because there's one mission type that seemed to happen way too much and it was way too long and tedious for me. It was the smuggling missions.
Oh my gosh, yes, I knew you
You
were gonna say that.
you got so many smuggling missions from every world and the idea was I need you to take this from here to whatever other planet. And so you do, but you have this probably 10 to 15 minute uh experience of you jump to light speed for 30 seconds and then you stop and you have to fight 20 ships and then you do that like three times from place to place and I think having one or two of those is interesting,
Right.
or maybe you have one where um you have to fight the ships. The second one you have to complete a race or something like you're evading the ships and then you show up at the planet, right? Having even three, four, five of those throughout the game I think would be fine. But when there's 15, 18 of them, it's like I'm over it, you know?
And it reminds me of our episode last week when we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy and the Merlin trials, and not
Exactly.
only not only were there 850,000 of them, but there were three variations of the puzzle,
Yep.
and that was it. And the open world, it's like I would take a smaller open world and spend more time on puzzles and challenges than saying, okay, we've got this huge world and it's huge and it's beautiful to be able to go and explore all of these different cities. I mean, think of Bespin. Is that
Hmm.
that's the Air City, right? And
Yep.
it's like huge. You in the movie you see maybe four corridors, but then they
Hmm.
expand it into this huge world and you get to go and explore, and that's cool.
Which was awesome.
It is. But then when you have 850 tasks that you have to do on that one world to just 100 complete 100% that one world, that is when I'm like, all right, we got to do something different.
Well, then,
Slow it down and make the challenges more unique. And instead of
mhm.
having 180 things that you have to finish on Bespin, drop it down to 60 with half of them being, your actual storyline on Bespin. And then the other half, kind of interesting, fun, self-contained things on Bespin, and then maybe one or two where you have to take something or go from there to wherever else. You know what I mean?
And I realize that this is a very, people listening to this might think this is kind of a whiny gripe that there's too much to do. And I understand that.
And it is,
And
but that's what we're here
I
for.
that's what we're here for. No, but like I appreciate that the developers put so much effort into this. They put
Right.
so much content and love and blood and sweat and tears into this game. And on the whole, it was fun enough to play.
Hmm.
I just think they focused on the wrong things. And
Exactly.
so, like you said, I would rather have more unique puzzles or more engaging puzzles than higher quantity. And one puzzle that I can praise was on the, let's see, what is the world where the rebel base is in A
Endor,
New Hope?
Hoth,
No. What is it?
Yavin 4.
Yavin 4. Yep. So it's the rebel base at Yavin 4. At the very top of the base, there's, a puzzle where you have to, I don't know, you have to like switch some digital circles around.
Right, the between the Jedi and the Sith symbol, is that what we're talking
Yeah,
about?
something like that. And good grief, that took me so long. And
Yeah,
I thought it was, it was good. Maybe it shouldn't have taken me that long. But, I thought that was at least an interesting puzzle to have to solve, instead
right.
of just fly and destroy the ships for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
So to reforge it, I would take away the repetitiveness, the sort of less engaging puzzles, and the interconnectivity of the worlds, and make it a little more focused. Focus it down on each world and make some more engaging puzzles. That would be my the best recommendation
right.
that I could make.
And in my mind, and to finish up that train of thought, the open world is fun, but if you could dial it in from the open world ends up being, okay, you have one dedicated real level on Naboo. But then you have all of these things that are open world-ish that you have to do to get enough kyber bricks to make it to the next level, maybe.
Well, and I think that would be an idea as well, because at the end of the day, the Kyber bricks kind of don't mean a whole lot.
Right,
And as far as, completionists go, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to get everything. But
right,
for the regular person, it's like, well, there's no real incentive for me to look for these collectibles because I can just go to the next level.
right,
And so I like that you brought that up. I think that would be a compelling reason to at least why you have so many Kyber bricks, give
right,
people the option to find different ones. You don't have to find the same six as everybody else,
right,
but to make them go and look and have it actually mean something. No, I
right,
I hadn't thought of that. And that's funny that you say that because I made the parallel to Super Mario Odyssey. But that's exactly what Mario Odyssey does. You
right,
have to find a certain amount of power moons before you can go to the next kingdom, right?
right.
So I think that is an idea that would work really well.
I just think that focuses it a little bit more, and gives you an incentive to go back. And I don't think it needs to be necessarily, and you can structure it however you want, honestly. But like, if you have 20 possible kyber bricks from level 1 to level 2, and you can get 6 of them in the actual gameplay, the level, um and then that gives you what, 14 others that you can get. If you say you need 10, I think that's a reasonable thing. It gives you stuff that you can go and do and gives you an incentive, and then you can get to the next level. And then, you can play and it gives structure. I guess that is my hard thing about the open world is that at a certain point, unless your goal is I really want to 100% this game and platinum Star Wars or the Skywalker Saga, like then there's no reason. You get fed
Right.
up. Um, but if you have a reason to do half of it and it actually matters, you have to do some of the stuff to even get to the next level. That to me makes it more compelling and more fun and would just tie the game together.
Right.
I keep going back, not keep going back, but it reminds me of the first game I played that had this kind of idea, and it was Banjo-Kazooie. You had to
Right.
at least get enough notes to pass the next note door. You
Right.
had to at least get enough puzzles to open, jiggies to open up the next painting, the next level. And so like you didn't have to 100% it, but you had to do enough to move
Right.
on. But that element was non-existent here.
When you kind of, and I mean, I guess that's how Lego games have been, and so I can't fault them. You just have to get through the level. You
Right.
just walk through it and you can go to the next one. And maybe that's what they were trying to do, make it so that people can just enjoy, the parody of Star Wars, the Lego parody of Star Wars. But I think there's something to having, a minimum requirement, and it
Mhm.
doesn't have to be huge, but do something.
Right.
And I think it's more important to have that when you have an open world type of game, you know, or else it kind of gets boring.
Right.
There's no reason to have the open world unless you're a Star Wars fan that geeks out about going to these places or you're a completionist. You
Right.
know, it's disconnected to the progression in the game.
It
But
is. And just focusing a little bit, and I'm trying to think, um, they kind of did this a little bit in Assassin's Creed. I know you haven't played it as much as I have, um, and I get, fed up with it, but I'm trying to think and I can't remember which one it is, but it's where you're in kind of like the Greek Romanish era. Or even the Assassin's Creed Valhalla one where like there are different areas that you go to, and yes, everything is the same, but like the level of difficulty increases as you go. And so you have to at least grind a little bit on the 1 to 10 levels before you can go to the 15 to 20 levels and the
right,
20 to 30, you know what I mean? So like there's at least something that you have to do, some reason to complete side quests and tasks or whatever, because you have to at least increase your level. But like
right,
with Lego Star Wars, you're not increasing your level other than you're trying to get enough kyber bricks to upgrade your characters. But like, and that's fine. I like some of those elements and things. But going back to gameplay and the upgrading and finding, all of the ship variations and characters and all of these things, like it was too much to really be compelling. But like go to the upgrade. Can we call it the skill tree? Is that
yeah, yeah,
like I didn't use any of the skill tree. It was the only reason to upgrade, all of them was because you had to upgrade all of them to 100% everything.
right,
But like who cares if you got 500 more studs or 5,000 more studs if completed the actual puzzle rather than just skip it. Does that make
right,
sense? Like,
right.
because you can skip it or you can do it. Am I wrong in thinking that? Is that this game? You can skip the thing and get like 500 studs, or you can do the puzzle and get 1,000 or 2,500 or whatever.
I think that was for like the when the droids interact with
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
Yeah.
When you're at the terminals or other things. And it
Hmm.
was like, okay, that's an interesting feature, and you can save time or you can do the puzzle or whatever, and cool, but like I don't know, like it wasn't like, yeah, we need to do that because it makes the game so much easier. It was like, yeah, we need to do that because I want 100% everything. So,
It's like the skill tree was sort of a skill tree just for the sake of having one.
right,
Not because it really made the gameplay easier.
right.
It just was there so that it could be there.
It was there so that it could be there. But like contrast that with Jedi Fallen Order or Jedi Survivor, where like you could actually make a difference in your gameplay by which skills you worked on first.
Right.
And uh, yeah, there are certain things that you had to do or whatever, but like you could really make an impact in how you wanted to play the game based on what you chose, what force powers to upgrade, what, styles to choose. And
Right.
it gave it some weight, but like here it didn't really. It was just another thing to complete.
Well, and some people might say, why are you complaining? You're comparing a Lego game to an action RPG game. But I would say, well, then just take out the skill tree. You
Right,
know, I would rather there not be one than have one that's kind of meaningless, because there had to be resources put into that to make
right,
that. And
right.
I would say spend those resources somewhere else. Spend that time somewhere else,
And I guess
to improve another area.
that is my gripe with the entire open world thing. You put so much effort into having so much content. And let's say that they spent 90% of their efforts on creating the open world and having all of the quests and interconnecting and doing all of that. And it was cool in theory, but it became tedious. But if you drop that down to maybe 65 or 70% is focused on the open world and focus the rest on connecting the levels together and really dialing it in on, hey, maybe you're actually really going through the full story of what happens, and then you've got an open world and you have a couple of things just tightened up that kind of give it a little bit more flow and direction. I think that would have been a lot more successful to me than, okay, we did the Naboo City whatever, and now we have to go and fly, or we do the podcast or pod race, excuse me. We're doing the podcast now.
We're doing the podcast now.
Um, but you do the pod race and like cool, but there's 45 minutes of movie that happens between the start of episode 1 and the pod race, and we don't explore really any of that kind of stuff.
Right,
You know what I mean? You could make it so you have to unlock certain areas by doing certain things. And it doesn't have to be a full world, but it's like, okay, um, in order to unlock, like you said, you do the whole underwater Gungan City thing, for example, and then in order to unlock going to Theed, you have to do the one time go through the planet core in your submersible thing. And
right,
then and then you get there and then you're in Theed and you're doing all of these things and you have to in order to get off the planet, you have to go and do the side quest, which is, you have to save Padme and whoever from the what you know what I mean? Like there are things that you
right.
have to do and you can kind of follow the story a little bit. And yeah, there are other side quests and you can come back and do the open world, but like I think if you actually did it that way and you went through the full story, it might have been. it might have felt more structured to me. And it's like, okay, but in order to do, unlock the, you know, save Padme side quest, you have to have 4 kyber crystals or 5
Mm,
or whatever. And so you have to go and do that. And if you can get them all in the Gungan City thing or not the Gungan City, the underwater world to Gungan City level that you wanted to create, if you can get all 5 of them there, great. But that's really difficult. And there are other places that you can do and go and do things. And then you do that, and then you can move on. And
right.
I think if you spent, like I said, 65% of the time focusing on that and the side quests, but kind of channel it towards following the actual plot of the movie, then it would have felt more fun. And then again, you don't need 100% of all of the possible kyber crystals to get to, the second level in episode 2 or episode 1 or episode 2, to finish moving forward, but you have to do some stuff and it helps you get forward and progress. And then for completionists like us, then you have a couple of connected worlds that you have to go to or do things, or you can go and get all of the kyber crystals and you can upgrade everything and find all of the characters and do all of that, and it can be really fun. But you have a progression and a reason to do it to at least get you half the way there. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
So that would be the thing that I would change most. Yeah, we could go through and talk about why did they do this level or why would they do that. But I think if you want an open world, um, you've got to give me a little bit of a reason to follow through and do some of the things and explore it a little bit in order to keep moving on because that's what's keeping me engaged in the world.
Exactly.
When I started you know, episode 4 and you're on Tatooine and there's so much to do and you're out in the wastelands where, you know, Luke's round Hubble thing is, I can't, what is that called?
A dwelling. I don't know.
Dwelling, I guess. You're out there in that dwelling, and that's like there's so much to do, and you almost get overwhelmed. And at one, it's like it's cool. There's so much to do, but then when you start to do it, you're like, but there's so much to do.
Mhm.
But like if you channel it a little bit for me, then it doesn't feel so overwhelming and so tedious because you're actually working to get to the next thing. You're working to get from uh you know, uh, Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's whatever to find Obi-Wan, and then you're doing that to find your way to Mos Espa, and then get on the thing, and you have things that you have to do, and it just, I think, would tighten it up for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. Well, I don't know that I have any other things to add on how I would improve it.
I don't,
Um,
I don't think so. Short of going movie by movie and level by level, which I don't think we want to do because we could spend an entire day doing that.
mhm.
So we're gonna leave it to the rest of you guys. Are we just idiots whining about something? What would you have done to fix it? If you like what our suggestions are, let us know in the comments. If you think we're off base, let us know as well.
If you want to see our last video talking about Hogwarts Legacy and how we would change that, click up here. And if you want to check out our other videos on our channel, click over there above Trevor's head. And we'll see you next
Abs-
time.
Absolutely. Like, subscribe, comment, and we'll see you next time.